Welcome back to Financial Intelligence. Today we have the amazing Taylor Garcia from Jackson and Jackson Insurance to talk to us about all the things you need to know, want to know, any questions you ever thought you might want about insurance, home insurance, and auto insurance. Let's get started. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really do appreciate having me on.
Yeah, great to see you. Great to talk to you a little bit today. And we have the amazing and glorious. What rank are you? E8, E9. You're E8,
Neither.
E7,
E7. Neither eventually.
Sergeant First Class,
Yeah.
Patrick McAndrew,
Thank
and
you, sir.
yeah. So today we're talking about insurance. Taylor, why don't you give us a quick rundown about what you do, who you are? You're a family man. Let's get moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're Jackson and Jackson Insurance. We are a family agency here in Glendora, California. I work with my in-laws. So my in-laws own the agency as of now. We're kind of in a transition period of, they're starting to retire and I'm kind of starting to take over. But yeah, we're your local mom and pop independent insurance agency in town. So we represent ton of different carriers. We do home and auto, but a big bulk of our business is the commercial side. So we do business insurance as well
I
as
see.
as well as life insurance. So we kind of have different agents for different areas of expertise, so to speak.
So do you carry? Is it one general license, or do you have multiple licenses?
We have multiple licenses. So we have our for our insurance licenses, we have our property and casualty, and then we have our life and health. So we kind of do the employee benefits and life with that license, and then we can do the home, auto, workers comp and that kind of thing with the business, and then personal insurance.
Right on. And then you say you go to multiple carriers, so you're kind of like a broker, I guess, right?
Yeah. So we are a broker. We used to be like, our name is actually, the official name is Insurance Agents and Brokers. So it's Jackson and Jackson Insurance Agents and Brokers. I try to shorten it because it's long, but yeah. So we're both agents and brokers, but we represent a ton of different companies: Liberty Mutual, Nationwide, all the big names that you hear on TV, as well as some smaller insurance companies that kind of specialize in different programs and different situations.
Right on. And Jackson and Jackson has been around for a couple 100,000 years, right?
It feels like it, basically. Yeah, it's been around. We're just pushing 90 years, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so my father-in-law's dad started it in, I think it was 1936, and then my father-in-law purchased the agency in 1980. And then when I married my wife in 2015, that's kind of when I came on, and he kind of took me under his wing because he's like, I need the third generation to come into play here. So since 2015, he kind of took me in and kind of has just been training me up and teaching me all aspects of the business.
Right on. So what did you do before? How long have you been doing it now? You've been doing it for a while too, right?
Yeah. What, 8 years now, almost?
Okay, good. And what did you
Yeah.
do before that?
I was a musician.
I can
I
see.
was a I was a touring musician. I worked at a local music store, Guitar Center, but I was retail, and then yeah, I just toured. I played drums for multiple different bands, and I just traveled and played gigs all the time. That was kind of my bulk of my life up until recently. And then I got married and had children, and I was like, I got to get an actual job because I'm not making a whole lot of money. And so that's kind of,
Was that your
yeah.
idea or her idea?
Yeah, exactly.
It was actually my idea because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this child's food and diapers and everything.
Well, you married into the right family, it seems like.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. I definitely was very lucky for him to kind of take me in. And it's funny because he mentioned that, and he's like, are you looking at other jobs? Because he knew I wasn't making a whole lot, but he was supportive of me. And then I was like, yeah, but I'm looking. And that's kind of when we had the conversation. He was like, do you want to come work for me? And I was like, insurance? That's like the complete opposite of what I was wanting to do with my life. But I kind of came in and I just took it on full force because I was like, I'd never went to college. So I was like, I saw how my father-in-law lived and how successful he was. And I was like, if I could be remotely in that position at some point in my life, like, I'm good. So I'll just go in full force. And that's kind of what I did.
And you haven't looked back.
No, really, I haven't. And it's funny
That's
because I stopped playing music for a long time since my kids were born. And then recently I got into music at my church. And so now I'm kind of full circle. Now I'm starting to play music again through our church, which is kind of fun.
that's great. What church do you go to?
It's called One and All. It's in San Dimas. We have multiple campuses. There's one in Upland, San Dimas, West Covina.
So is it like a mega church, or is it like how many people go to?
I mean, I would consider it a mega church. It's pretty large.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
And
So-
and he's the mega drummer for the mega.
Mega drummer at the mega church.
Yeah. I'm going to say too, and just for full disclosure, so I work with Jackson on life insurance stuff. We've partnered there, and they've asked me to help them out with clients there, which has been great. I got a chance to get to know Taylor, his family, the folks that work there, his father-in-law, just wonderful family. And for me, there's nothing better than finding a family-ran small business that is out there creating value for their customers and providing excellent customer service. It makes me feel like I'm working with the American dream, right? It's not some big corporate entity. It's not some big place where you're calling a 1-800 number and you're on hold. That kind of experience that we're all too familiar with. And talking to somebody who's probably not here in the United States. And so it's been wonderful getting to know that family. And Taylor has been interesting to me only because he's in this role of taking over, getting the torch passed on to him, and so to speak, from his father-in-law, and he's bringing this agency, into kind of a more technologically advanced era. I guess that's how I'll put it. So anywho,
That's great. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. So I recently jumped into church about 2 years ago and 3 years ago, and I'm not a musician one bit. I don't have a melodic note to my body, but
I can testify to that.
you don't want to hear me sing, but I do have my little video editing business, and I was meeting with a bunch of guys. We had like a guys' night out, and we went to like a pub, and everybody's eating. And the guy that was across the street, away from me, never met him before in my life, and he manages the entire background, I guess, or he does the cameras, the audio, and all that stuff for all the sermons. And I don't want to say we're at a mega church. I want to say it's like 500 or 600 people that show up at every sermon. It's a big church.
Sure.
And I'm like, hey, I'd love to help out and help do whatever I can to be a part of this and learn.
He's just trying to get into heaven. He's just trying to find a way.
Right.
Let me in.
Into heaven. And he goes, well, we have camera ops, and we have, director, and we have guy that does slides, and we have lights. I'm like, put me into the camera. So I've been doing the camera like once or 3 times a month at my church. And
very cool.
I love it. It's fun. And I get the word passed down, and I get it twice because I have to watch 2 sermons. Well, I don't have to. I get to watch 2 sermons, and it's a great thing, right? I mean, giving back, being a part of a community, and doing something like that is just awesome. So I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing Patrick mentioned when we were talking about it at one point, it was like we kind of had that conversation of like being a part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Right.
And like he was kind of relating it to being in the military, and that was like being in the church is feeling, that's what I feel I get a little bit of like just being a part of something that's just not, that's just bigger than myself. So it's been definitely rewarding, for sure.
I'll say one more thing on since you're on the subject. Taylor had a cool video on his Instagram. I don't think it was from me. I think your mother-in-law shared it. Right. It was your kids, especially your daughter. They're just rocking out, watching dad play the drums in church, which I thought was really cool. I was like, that was really awesome.
That's so cool.
They love it. Yeah, they love it. And they go to a Christian school, so all the songs that we play at the church, they're listening to at school. So they get to see me practice them, and they listen to them at home, and then they get to see them at church, and they're like, whoa, this is so cool. So it's been really it's been really fun to see them like just
full
enjoy
circle,
it.
right? Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned it exactly right, Patrick. You said something about being a part of the community and giving back, but when you leave something that big, that huge mission, you have a big hole in your heart and your soul and your whatever you want to call it, right? And I'm probably not the most religious kind of guy out there, but I do get something back from giving, and I get part of that community, and I get a sense of fulfillment, and that's what's awesome about that, right? So my pastor actually came up to me and tried to get me to we have this thing called Beautiful Day, and it's coming up on October 7th and 8th. In case you're listening and you want something to do, we go out to 19, 20 different places in our community. We go to schools and parks and different like last year we did a food bank, and we fix it up. We paint and clean the place up and do any kind of minor repairs and landscaping, you name it. And this year they wanted me to do Emma Prush Park, which is a huge park in San Jose, and they wanted me to be a lead. I'm like, dude, there's just no way I can manage that on top of all my businesses and kids and everything. So I appreciate it. So what I wound up doing is I'm a sub lead at an elementary school called Latimer in Campbell, which is just border on San Jose, and it's a school I went to in 5th grade.
That's cool.
Wow,
So,
how cool.
yeah, so it's great going back to the school, seeing where I went to school and all the.
Do they have roofs on the school now?
They have roofs, and they actually have chairs now.
Good.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Sure, it's changed a lot since.
Yeah. So it's just all, and it's a sense of fulfillment when you give back to your community. You feel a whole lot better, right? And it comes back to you. You don't mean it for it to come back to you, but it comes back to you, and that's what's awesome about it.
Sure.
So I appreciate you, Taylor, for spending time with your church and giving back.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Right on. Let's dig into a little bit more.
We have some insurance questions.
Let's do it.
So I've been with State Farm for so long. I don't shop, but once in a while I'll talk to people. In the back of my head, I'm always asking, how much insurance is too much, right? I mean, I have a home, I have 3 automobiles, I have all this stuff. How do I know if I'm overpaying or if I need certain things?
It's really hard to say. I mean, overpaying, you don't really know unless you kind of look at the marketplace. Like one thing that we kind of, I wouldn't say have an advantage of, but one good thing about us versus say like a State Farm or Farmers is we have access to multiple carriers. So I could look at Travelers, Nationwide, Hartford, Mercury, Safeco. I could get maybe 6 prices and then be like, hey, based on these 6, this one's going to be your best so far. Now, I can't price Farmers and State Farm, so that's kind of hard to say. But I think as far as pricing goes, the only thing you can really do is like trust. Like for us, what we do is just shop with our markets that we have and just go off that. Right now, the market's been really hard, so prices are going up. So everybody's kind of overpaying right now a little bit.
I wanted to ask you about that too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. It's a great segue, right? I mean, because everybody's kind of worried about what's going on with all the fires. We, like in San Jose, we have the fires up in Oregon blowing down, and we have smoke everywhere. We know last year we had so many fires. A lot of carriers are just exiting California.
Right. And I've seen news articles that I've read online in the news. It's just California seems to be a interesting state right now for if you're an insurance carrier, right? Particularly PNC.
Yeah, it really is. And it all kind of, I mean, there are other states that I've talked to other agents that are feeling it as well. But we're basically what we call a hard market where these insurance companies are tightening down, rates are going up. And a big part of it was the insurance commissioner, usually. So the top dog in the state has to approve rate increases. Now, these insurance companies naturally have to have rate increases because cost of everything is going up. Cost to rebuild homes, cost to fix cars, all the technology in cars, everything's going up. So to fix the cars. So naturally they have to have these rate increases. Well, since the pandemic, they stopped all rate increases because everybody was struggling. Well, what happened was you had a snowball effect from like 3-4 years. And now so a lot of the insurance companies pulled out because they're saying we're not charging enough and we're paying too much in claims. So we're losing money here. So they would just start pulling out, or they're slowing down business, or they're stopping business as a whole. And then finally, just recently, the insurance commissioner of the California anyway, specifically goes, okay, we'll start letting some in. Well, now these insurance companies, instead of doing gradual rate increases each year, they're playing catch up, and they're saying, okay, we need to get 3 years of rate increases in now.
Wow.
And so you're seeing, that's why you're seeing 50, 100, 150% increases sometimes. Like we had one where homeowners went from like $2,000 to like $6,000. Now, part of that was rate increase. Part of that was they remapped and they realized a lot of these areas maybe now are brush or not, but we're seeing really big rate increases right now and across the board, whether you go to AAA, Farmers, State Farm, whoever you're going to, I'm imagining right now they're all kind of getting hit, and we're taking it every which way right now, and having to have those hard conversations with the clients going, hey, I know it went up a lot, but honestly across the board it is. So you're best off staying where you are, because a lot of these insurance companies too aren't taking new business. So if you move, Farmers and some of these other carriers aren't writing new insurance. So you're almost kind of forced to stay with what you have and kind of take that rate increase at this time. And you know, we just keep saying here, we're like, something's got to give at some point, because these rates are just going up and up and up, and these carriers are getting more and more strict with what they want and so on. And so, yeah, it's been a crazy time right now, and we're just like, well, we'll just ride it out as long as we can.
What can you do, right? I mean, we're seeing the same thing in real estate where people are waiting. They're saying, I want to wait for the interest rates to come down. Well, sure. Great. Here's the thing. Even in this market where we're paying 7-8%, people are paying 5 to 40% over list price today. 70%, 65 to 70% every week. I look at this every week. 65 to 70% of the houses that are closed from a month ago are still over list price. And that could be from anywhere from 1% up to 40% over list price. And it depends. So there's, another 30% of people that are getting great deals, but that's because maybe the seller overpriced the property in the first place based on condition and market concerns, but they're still buying houses, right? And it's happening all across the United States. You look all across the United States. And I did that today. Inventory is going up, but not at a hockey stick turn up. It's incrementally going up, which is the natural process, the natural cycle of our market, because in September, October, that's when markets start coming back to normal and we start flooding the market with listings again. Sure. But we see no end in sight of this high interest rate. Everybody's saying, it's going to come down. It's going to come down. We know through talking to people, through surveys, that the buyers will start entering the market again at 5.5%, but that's not going to happen for a long time. Right. And when that does happen, guess what? Now you have tons of competition instead of now where you have a little bit of competition. So, it's just a different dynamic. Everybody's paying more for everything. I just saw $6.51 for a gallon of gas.
Yeah.
God, it's brutal. I know.
I think going back to what you said about the state commissioner, insurance commissioner, it's a tough position in that. I'm just thinking from that point of view, it's like, on one hand, you need to make sure consumers are treated fairly. Sure. And on the other hand, you need to make sure insurers make enough money to stay solvent, right? That they can gotta make money.
It's kind of like a balancing act, right?
Yeah. So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. And compounded here in California with, just the wildfires, you name it, all that stuff. So it's pretty crazy. Now, I was getting back to Jackson. So you guys don't just do home and auto, right? You're also cover business owners or liability type insurances, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, we're a good 50-50, but we do a lot of business insurance, and it could be large businesses all the way down to your small mom and pop, retail store, restaurant, etc. We do all of it. And then recently, what's that? I'm sorry.
So is that affecting the same? Is that how does that, is that complete disconnected to like the home and auto market in the state of California, or is that like completely different? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's a good question. The business side of the commercial side is getting hit with rate increases as is anything, mainly because like property buildings going up and everything else, cost is going up. But fortunately for us, the commercial side isn't getting hit as hard. It's mainly the personal line side. It's the home and auto that's really kind of been tough. We're losing our markets. We're down to like 1 or 2 where we used to have like 6 or 7. The commercial side, we have a lot more options to provide for business owners. We're not getting hit as hard in that department. So that's why we've kind of been, for us to continue our revenue streams, it's just kind of doubling down on the commercial side right now because personal lines has been a little bit challenging.
got it.
Yeah.
And when you look at commercial insurance for SMB and even large companies, right there, it's basically the same thing. You need to have insurance for automotive. You need to have insurance for loss and liability of the building and all the equipment inside, all the inventory, all that other stuff. And it's just, everything's getting more expensive, right? So used to buy a widget for $5. Now it's worth 15. So you have to increase that insurance up a little bit.
Yeah. And then the rates go up and then they have to charge more to factor in the insurance costs. And it's absolutely.
You know, the one saving bastion that we have in California is Proposition 13. And I think I have to say this as, you know, a real estate nerd. Proposition 13 is a bastion. No other state in the union has Proposition 13, which keeps the property taxes low, right? And last 2 years ago, when we put them on the chopping block, they were talking to people saying, oh, we can get rid of Proposition 13 for industrial and commercial properties. And I'm like, no, that's absolutely stupid, because let's say that you bought this strip mall or an industrial warehouse for $250,000 in the 70s. Well, now it's worth $10-20 million. Of course, California wants to get the property tax on that, right? They want to increase the value. Right now, they're probably paying values of maybe $1 million or $2 million. So if Proposition 13 went away, they would jump up their property tax and increase it tenfold. Well, the landlord's not going to pay for that, and the lessee or if you're leasing that building, they're not going to pay for that property tax. That means it's going to go to the consumer. So it's just a foolhardy attempt to grab more money and be. Oh, we lost them.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay. Well, you can come back.
There we go. I'm back.
There you go. So, you know, I know it's like we're getting hit left and right, and California's never been, well, not for the last 40 years, has been a great place to own small businesses. So, you know, we're going to see a lot of change here.
Yeah. I think if anything is for sure, the rate of change has been increasing for some time. So that just continues. I had a question for you, Taylor, on, I know you guys do business coverages, I guess is what I'll call it, or commercial coverages nationwide, right? And so you probably get a different flavor from around the country, I'm guessing. But I'm curious, this is a question we ask folks who we interview is, you know, what are questions you wish a client or somebody who comes to you seeking coverages, what do you wish they would ask you that they never do? Or what's a question, you would being the expert in your field, that somebody should ask you, but they just never think to ask?
Oh, that's a good question. It's so funny because I think a lot of people don't ask enough about their actual coverage. So and I hope this answers your question. I'm just thinking a lot of people I talk to, I kind of have to force the conversations of what they're actually buying and trying to get out of them what they actually need as far as protection goes. Because I think too many people, and again, not everyone, I don't want to stereotype, not everyone does this, but most people are looking at the bottom line. What is this going to cost? Right. And it's hard for me to try to explain what they're actually buying. Well, look at, you have this, and this, and this protects you in this area, and this protects you in this area. But when I start getting into those kind of conversations, I can see them just tune out. And I'm like, okay, they're just like, I don't care what I'm like. I just need the proof of insurance to sign off on this job or whatever, you know? So I think one thing that I always wish that people, and the people that do come to me, I just really value is they look at the coverage that they're buying and they're wanting to kind of see how they're properly protected. Because one thing that I like to do is, and I'm a little different than a lot of other agents, is I look at it from like almost like a consulting perspective, not just like I'm going to quote you and try to get you the cheapest price. So I turn away actually a lot of business because there's a lot of people that just call and they just want a cheap quote here and now. I'm like, no. Like I do this whole analysis and I audit your stuff and I look at your assets and I look at your business and what do you need? And I think too many people, as far as business owners go, because primarily I'm working with business owners. I know the home and auto side has their own struggles there too, but the business side, I think not enough people are looking at the actual what risks they have and like the coverage conversations. And I get it. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but I enjoy when there's somebody that's actually like, hey, what is this? And why do I need this? And we can kind of dive deep because I like to educate people on, especially new businesses, on what they're actually buying, you know? And too many times the questions always end in what's the price of it? And I'm like, well, let me explain what you're buying, you know, because too many times I'll be like, well, what is this $5,000 bill? This is expensive. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to consider you're a roofer and you're on the roof. And this is where, you know, so yeah, I think that's kind of the area where I think I always try to push a little bit more is just, let's talk about I know it's just a piece of paper that you hope you never have to use, but let's have that conversation to show like what those coverages look like and what we're actually protecting, because too many times you'll get too stuck on the bottom line, you know?
Right. I think I was just going to say there's a similarity there. I've seen like in just personal coverage, like life insurance or whatever. It's like, you know, you're looking at the cost, and the cost is real. Like we have to calculate that. Just look at
sure.
You know, gas is going up, everything's going up, right? So
absolutely.
But you know, compared to the cost of something compared to the cost of not having the right amount, you know, it's like, let's think about why you're getting something in the first place, right? To cover your assets, as they say. So yeah.
And the one thing that I was always taught, like my father-in-law always did, was he always told people, I'm not going to be your cheapest price, but I will do what I will be is when you have a claim, you won't have to worry about not having enough coverage or not having the right insurance in place. And the claims, you're going to get denied coverage or you're not going to get the full payout. You're going to get the full, exactly what you need to replace what you lost. And that was one thing that just stuck with me. And I always push that. I'm like, I'm not your Geico's or the cheapest price, but I will guarantee that you get the right stuff in case of there's a claim, because the business owner, there's a lot to lose. If there's a big claim, you have business income and you can lose a lot if there's a big claim. And so I just want to, you know, that's one thing that I always do. And some people value it, some people don't, you know what I mean?
Sure. I can tell you, I had years ago, we bought a bunch of duplexes out in Arkansas, and 3 months to the day that we closed, one of the duplexes burned down. They were cooking something, the grease fire, and burned down the entire thing. And it wound up that while we doubled what we paid as far as the insurance payout, it was not enough to rebuild it. It was going to cost us like 4 times as much as what we got back from the insurance policy.
Wow.
And so we just we tore up the land, dug up all the old stuff, the foundation, and all the way down to utilities, and we let it go fallow. And we took the rest of the money and put it towards the loan, and it just sat there. It just sat there until we sold all the other duplexes and we got rid of it. It's really smart. I had no idea what I was doing back then. It was 15 years ago. And you know, it's you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It is. And that's one thing. It's like, I always know it's like cost is always a factor. And I never want to downplay that, but I always try to say, and if somebody wants, because we get a lot of times they'll come in and they'll go, like, I get commercial property owners or it's a property manager, and they're like, hey, this is too expensive. Can you just cut that building limit in half? Because I just don't, it's fine. And I'm like, well, no, because at the time of a claim, I'm going to give you 300,000 and you needed 700,000. Now you're going to look at me and go, what the heck, at the time of a claim, because it's a stressful time. And I was like, I would rather turn it away and go, unfortunately, we need it done this way because this is the right way to do it. And if you want it cheaper, I'm sure there's somebody out there that will do that. But me, I don't want to sell you that, because I know that's not enough. And so that's one thing. It's just having that honest conversation. And as a commission guy, you want to write it, right? You want that check, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's not worth it, because I'm doing a disservice by doing that,
Right.
Not only that, you want to sleep good at night, right? So
Exactly. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
That's the toughest thing, right? It's like you're trying to figure out how to service somebody, and a lot of my people come to me and say, I want this, I want that, and I don't want to pay you anything for it. I'm like, well, there's another agent that's desperate enough for your business, to go right ahead, right?
Sure.
I have a couple levels of service, but I'm not going to completely discount myself and hurt you at the same time, because
Right.
the last thing that you want is to have a reputation of being an idiot, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, case in point, I had a guy come back to me and he was grinding me on my commission. I'm like, I'm just not interested in doing that, because I spent 3 hours, and he was older, right? I spent 3 hours with him traveling around his house, and he's limping around. He's an older guy. And with older people, you have to be really, really careful, because there's that elder abuse, and you don't want to get a bad name for yourself. And he kept on coming at me. It's like, I want this fixed, this fixed, this fixed. And I gave him some of my people already, and he starts grinding me on commission. And I'm like, I'm just, you know what? It's probably better for me to not do this listing for you, because my level of service comes at a cost, and you want me to do the best job for you. There's always going to be somebody that's willing to do it for less.
Sure.
And, at the end of the day, that guy spent 3 hours telling me about all the different things that he had done. And this guy was an idiot, and that guy's an idiot. And this guy, and then the last thing I want is for this guy to think that I'm an idiot for selling his house. And, I just, smartly, you have to back away from some people sometimes. Right.
Right. Absolutely. You can't be I was just saying this, you can't be everything to everyone. And that's what I always just try to, like, any new agents we hire, I try to say that. I'm like, the hardest thing you're going to do is walk away or say no to certain clients, but that's going to be the best thing you do in the end, because you're going to look at your clientele, and you could get a lot of business that's maybe these people that want the lowest limits, or just that are always canceling, or whatever it is. It just depends your business model. But for us at our agency, like, we have clients that have been with us 80, 70 years, and they're like, and even if their bill doubles or triples or quadruples, they're like, hey, you guys have always been there for us. Every claim's been seamless. Everything's there, and I'm insuring now. My father-in-law insured the dad. Now I'm insuring the son, and it's like generational. And so that's just one of those things. Like, I never want to bring on people that tarnish that reputation that we have, of just, hey, we're honest, but we're going to get you. We're not going to be the cheapest, but we'll get you what you absolutely need. And that comes with turning away people because they want the basic stuff, or cutting the limits in half, or doing this or that, or, hey, I only need this policy for 3 months because I'm going to be, and I'm like, that's just not our business model.
It's not worth the time for me to have my people write the claim or the policy for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But,
right.
I mean, that's, if they come at you at 3 months, like, well, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions, and I don't know if you can answer the second one. It's about walking away from insurance policies. But the first one is with you, because you're a broker. Let's say that I have my house underneath you, or my building underneath you, and it burns down. Do I call you? Do you handle all that? Do you manage all that? Or do I have to go to that carrier?
Yeah. So back in the day when I first started, we did it all. So you would call us, and we handled the entire claim for you, and we walked you through from starting the claim to when you got paid out. To this now into today's age, you call us, right? There's a claim. You reach out to our office. Hey, I had a car accident. My building burned down, whatever it is. You reach out to us, and then what we do is we start the process. But what the insurance companies are doing now is they don't want to play the game telephone. So they don't want you to tell me what happened and then me to tell them, because something may get lost in there. So what they end up doing is they either reach out to you directly during that process, and then they want to hear from the source what happened and get the full story. So there's times where our clients will say, hey, just give me the insurance company's number, I'll just start it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But we always try to push, hey, reach out to us first, let us help start it, and we can get you in contact with the insurance company to kind of get the ball rolling. And then what we do is we kind of follow up with the claim as it's going. Hey, why is it taking so long for this? What are we still missing? And then I'll reach out to the insured and say, hey, talk to the carrier, we still need this, this, and this from you. So we're kind of like the middleman. Like, you're still talking to the insurance company directly on a lot of it. You don't give everything to us. You kind of give it all to them directly, but we're kind of there to kind of make sure it's moving along and it's getting done properly. So it's kind of like a blend now, where before we kind of did it all.
Right.
And then now it's like, hey, the insurance company wants to talk to you and deal with you directly, but we still want to have our foot in the door of it.
So you're kind of like the wedding planner. You're not the main show, but you're making sure things move along.
Right.
You're
Absolutely.
the conductor, right?
Absolutely. So.
Along that line, there's that same question I'm going to ask you later on.
Yeah.
I don't know what they call it. The claim advocates. So people that are unbiased third parties that come in and come through and say, this is how much money you should be getting. Have you heard of those? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I have. It's not necessarily the claims adjuster from the carrier. It's like
Right.
it's a third party. I haven't run into those too often. Actually, since I've been here, knock on wood, I haven't experienced a lot of claims, to be honest, thankfully.
Oh, great. Good for you.
Yeah, it's been good, but I know the personal line side has more claims, but yeah, I have seen that before, to get like an unbiased opinion. If the carrier thinks one thing and they're kind of arguing back and forth, they may get a third party to come in and say, hey, let's see, let me get a neutral opinion here to try to like agree. Yeah, I have heard of those before.
Yeah, I see them on TikTok a lot, and I had no idea that they ever existed. I'm like, oh, if I had that knowledge, that little pocket of knowledge when I lost that duplex, who knows what would have happened. But their claim is that they don't get a payout. They get a pay on a percentage of what they saved you. So if they increase the claim, they get a percentage of that, which is valid, right? And if it's 30%,
Sure.
It's totally worth it. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that I have to look a little bit deep. Maybe I'll call one of those guys. We could do an interview with them.
Well, if they get a piece of the claim, how does that make them unbiased? It doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Not
but
bias at all. They have a complete bias. They have a stake.
You got a point there. And typically you see those guys and they try to get more out of the insurance companies because they know the insurance companies got deeper pockets. So
they have a flat fee. I can see that maybe, but I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know what they call themselves, and I don't know if I would say unbiased. I said it, not them. I don't know if they had ever used it or not, but what do I know? I mean, I'm just a real estate guy.
Yeah, and again, I haven't really experienced working with one of them either, so I'm not real sure on that either.
Might be a growing niche. I don't know. Maybe we'll see more of it.
Right?
All right. So the second question, this revolves around real estate. I've heard this multiple times on videos and articles. What people are doing, because cost of insurance is getting so expensive, is that they do a 3-month policy with you, whether you realize it or not, right? And then they'll cancel the policy. They'll buy a house, and then they get because you can't put a loan on a house unless there's insurance on it, right?
Right.
That's a requirement from all mortgage lenders. And
Correct.
then what happens is after 3 months or so, they're like, I can't afford this anymore. I gotta cancel this policy. Well, it's a big risk on our side, not personally me, but from the mortgage side, because if the lender finds out, they're going to call that loan.
Correct.
They're going to call it. And have you heard of that happening at all?
Yeah. So if you have a homeowner's policy, and usually, depending on the insurance company, a lot of times if the policy cancels, the insurance company will send something to the lender or to the mortgage company. So because we have them as an additional insured, which is basically just named on the policy as the mortgagee, a lot of times they get notices. So if there's a notice of cancellation for non-payment or whatever it is, the mortgagee usually finds out. And then a lot of times we'll get notified and say, hey, your insured hasn't paid their bill. You need to make sure that gets taken care of. Or what sometimes we've seen is the mortgagee or the mortgage company will just force coverage. So they'll buy insurance on the house and they'll just lump that into
Oh,
the mortgage or make them pay for it.
interesting.
We've seen that as well. But typically, if like you have a mortgage and you cancel, most of the time the mortgagee is going to find out, and they usually reach out to us and are either going to say, "Hey, you need to show us proof of new coverage," or we're just going to force coverage. And usually at that point, I don't know who they go through. It just really depends. But that's
Right.
kind of what I've seen, especially if there's a mortgage.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get the best deal. They'll probably put a little vig on top of it, and
Yeah.
I'm
you know,
sure.
it's just it's a silly game. I hadn't heard too much about it except for the last couple of months, and it's just kind of crazy. So I want to say 2 years ago now. When did Hurricane Ian happen in Florida? That was last year, right?
I think
So
last year.
like a month ago, a month before it ever happened, I took my family to Cape Coral and Fort Myers, where it actually hit land. And all the places that we went to got hit and devastated, like the Fort Myers Beach, and there was a bridge that got destroyed. And then I heard a couple news reports where hurricane insurance in Florida is like $10,000 a year. That's crazy. And
Yeah.
Florida's having the same issues as California is because
Oh yeah.
natural disasters, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not going to get a ton of earthquake insurance policies because that's super expensive here, but you have to have fire.
Yeah, you have to have it. And earthquake, you'd be surprised. I mean, we sell a lot of earthquake, and it is expensive, but it's not too bad. But yeah, Florida's the same way. And a lot of times now, like I have a few agents in Florida, and they're struggling. And a lot of times they just don't, the hurricane insurance, they just don't sell it. I mean, or some of the carriers just don't even offer it anymore because they're just paying out during those storms. They pay out so much that they're just like, I'm just going to not sell it anymore. But
Right?
it's tough. It's a whole other animal down there in Florida.
An alligator animal down there.
Yeah.
And water bugs. They call cockroaches
Yeah.
water bugs or something like that. And it's just like, come on, really? You know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a lot of these non-admitted companies where it's just like they kind of like come out of nowhere. They don't have to be regulated by the states. They're harder to get, they're more expensive. That's typically Florida's insurance for you. You don't have like we have nationwide and all these direct writers. That's easy. It's for agent side, it's quick to quote, it's relatively inexpensive. Florida, they don't really have any of that because there's so many storms. There's so many claims always happening. A lot of those companies just don't even write in that state,
I bet.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, how do you go through life without having that insurance on a property? And it's funny. I track Cape Coral because that's where we stayed. And we stayed on this canal house that had a house and then a pool, and then it led to the water, which was like 2 minutes away from the Gulf. It was just amazing.
Oh, nice.
Sounds
Wow.
beautiful.
But you can't just imagine, like, half these people didn't have hurricane insurance, and you look at half the listings that are up on market right now, and they have no drywall from the half of the house down because it just got soaked.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? And people are
Yeah.
still buying those things up because they're like, yeah, I'll just make it a brand new house. And I
Sure.
don't know. Crazy.
Yeah, you're making me think of a certain thing, and I think we got to wrap up kind of soon. I think you got to head somewhere, Taylor. But I think Vito, you were looking at. I don't know if it was you or somebody else. Who was it? Basically, there was a phenomenon that was getting really popular of people getting the heck out of California, which is a real thing, and like Florida was a destination. I mean, the factual numbers prove that, right?
Yeah.
However, I think if you look under the hood, so to speak, a lot of people were making that move without doing their full homework on the pros and cons.
Right.
Definitely some
Sure.
pros moving out of California to move almost anywhere else, I'd say, for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example. And so it goes back to making sure you have the right advice, having professionals around you to give you the expert opinion in their industry and in their lane so that you can make the most educated decision. So whether it's real estate for Vito, it's commercial coverage, or home and auto with Taylor, or financial plan for myself, or whatever it is you're looking for. I mean, it's just cutting corners can cost you a lot of money, even though it may
really
save you
can.
up front. Yeah.
Yep. We had a
You're
family
absolutely
that
right.
lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and they had a little tiny house. We sold them, and they moved to to Austin because they were going to save money. And he was an instructor at De Anza College, which is a community college. And, they didn't make a ton of money, great family and everything. They moved. And then like 2 years later, I talked to them and they're like, we're not saving any money whatsoever. We bought a nice house, but the cost of living is about the same because it's a pea in the cup game. They're shifting costs all around, right? So yeah, you might be saving money on gas and taxes and property costs, but cost of food is still expensive. Gas might not be as expensive, but you have toll roads, right? And and in Texas, it's like 2.5% versus 1% here.
Right.
Now, don't quote me on that number, but it's twice as expensive. But, the argument for some other people that have moved to Austin area is, yes, it's twice as expensive, but the house cost a third of the cost. That was a few years back. And I know where that money's going to. I know that they have a brand new school and it's run really efficiently and they run their government really efficiently. So, you just have to take the pros and cons and figure it out.
Yeah.
And, you have to take not just cost, but also family life, lifestyle, retirement. You have to take in crime. You have to take in things to do because, like in California, there's 5 minutes away from anything you want to do, or 2 hours away from anything you want to do. Where you live in Idaho, and you want to go to the beach, well, that's going to cost you a couple $1,000s.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I talk to other insurance agents across the country. I'm in all these different groups and I kind of lead a few of them. And I talk to agents all around. And it's so funny because everybody's so envious of where I am when I sell insurance because they're like, you in a 10-mile radius, you have more business to sell than I do in my entire county. And so for them, they're like, we have to sell everything. We got to sell the home, auto, business, life, health insurance. We got to have the whole thing to make it even worthwhile because we only have 20 businesses in our town. And so you guys have thousands, and so I talked to some of these and it's really interesting to hear some of the parts where it's really rural. They're like, yeah, we, a homeowner's is $400 where for us, it's like $3,000, and we just compare and they're like, it's just funny. Like I was talking to a guy, he's in rural New York, upstate New York, super rural. And he's like, oh yeah, I just sold a policy for, auto insurance was like $600 for 6 months. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, oh my gosh, that's like a monthly cost for us here. But I just love to share those stories or talk to other agents like that just to see where they're at in other parts. Cause they're like, it may be cheaper to live there, but if I were to do insurance there, it would look a lot different than what I'm making here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would have a cheaper house and my cost of living would be less, but I would have a lot less opportunities there to say sell insurance or whatever it is. And so they make a lot less than say what we do here. So I try, like you said, it's all weighing out the pros and cons to, doing that.
It'll all even out. It'll all even out eventually.
Yeah.
And Taylor, I really appreciate you coming on today because this whole thing, it's not about selling anything. It's about educating and asking questions and understanding.
Sure.
There's that quadrant of knowledge, right? The things the things you don't know, and all that other stuff. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is trying to raise the bar of education for financial matters across every aspect of your life. And that's what we did this for. That's what we're doing this for. And I appreciate you taking the time out to help educate our audience and bring everybody up a couple notches on the bar.
No, that's great. And go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to reiterate that. Thanks, man. I feel like we kind of scratched the surface, got a little deeper, but I bet there's probably some stuff there we could peel back on in any given subject. But so maybe we'll say that for another day, of course. And love to have you back on again sometime in the future, dude.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. And when Patrick was sharing what he was doing, I was really excited to hear about this because I love these kind of what you're doing here. And I love these kind of shows and I love educating people in what I do and other areas. So to see what you guys are doing, this is really, really cool. And I really enjoy. I'm going to now check it out. So thank you guys. And thank you for having me on.
Right on. Hey, it was great to meet you and great to talk to you. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
All right. Likewise. Thank you.
Maybe next time you could play a song for us.
You got it. I'll just set up behind here and you can
Belt it out. All right. Well, everybody, thanks again for listening in. And I hope this helps out. If you have questions or you have ideas, please send them in. We're here to help educate and get you up to the knowledge of where we need to be. It takes a whole team to be financially literate and financially intelligent. And that's what we're here to do for you, is be your advocates.
Right on.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Have a kick-ass week.
All right.
All right. See you later.